What is going on, everybody? If you clicked on this video here today, you are looking to solo flawless the new Spire of the Watcher dungeon. This time I will be talking about what I believe to be the easiest way to do this on Hunter. My last video was on Warlock. That did really well. I said at the end of that I would make another video about Hunter, and here it is. I will show you the class setup first. So here is the setup that I ran on my Hunter. I'll go through every little thing bit by bit, just so you can copy it or tweak it however you would like. So first I'll go into the subclass. Blade Barrage is great here. Even though it did recently get nerfed for Season 19, it still does a lot of damage, so it's definitely the best super to use for a majority of the dungeon. You will see me switch over to Golden Gun Marksman on the first boss, and I'll explain to you how that works when we get there. We're going to be using Gambler's Dodge because we're going to be using our melee attack a lot in this with Assassin's Cowl so that we go invisible. I always pick triple jump because it's my preferred method of using this. To start, you're going to be using the knife trick because this is my favorite knife and honestly the easiest one to get kills with in lower end content like a regular dungeon. You will eventually switch over to the proximity knife just for one encounter, just the first boss, in order to proc Radiant, because for some reason this knife doesn't hit the boss, so you won't get Radiant that way. So that's the whole reason that we're doing that there. For here, you're going to want healing grenades just to increase your survivability, and that'll go along really well with one of the fragments that we're using. The one thing I will say about Hunter is the survivability that you have on this class is surprisingly more than the Warlock build that I was running. So you can afford to be a little bit more out there and take a little bit more risks while you're doing this run, just because of how easy it is to survive with this setup. We're always going to go with on your mark and knock them down as our aspects here. And then when we look at the fragments, we're going to be using Ember of Searing. Ember of Empyrean is a really big one. It does give you that -10 resilience, which hurts a little bit, but we're going to be using a solar weapon, mainly the Callus mini tool, in order to extend our restoration effect when we need it. That gives us a tremendous amount of survivability there. We're going to do Ember of Singeing just to get our class ability back quicker, so we don't need mobility as much in this build. Ember of Torches so that we get Radiant, and then Ember of Acids just to spread more Scorch. When it comes to the weapons that we're going to be using, it's going to be a lot of the same throughout this dungeon. We're going to be running Wither Horde. It is just the best special weapon with the seasonal artifact mod, so we're going to be running that. I have two different Callus mini tools here. I will use this on a majority of the encounters instead of actually running a double special loadout, which I did on Warlock. I didn't really find that as necessary here, just because I like the Callus mini tool with Grave Robber, and then in the first encounter I use Threat Detector just so I can reload faster to destroy the eyes. Majority of the time you are going to be using Cataclysmic even on the final boss, and you'll see why when we get there. But really the most important thing for this build is the Assassin's Cowl. If you have not used this on Solar Hunter, it is incredible. The melee does do a lot of damage, so you will be going invisible and healing yourself constantly throughout this run if you're using this build. I did have hands-on just to get a bunch of super energy back every time I get a melee kill, which you'll be getting a lot of, and then a melee Wellmaker on here. You're also going to want to have a Celestial Nighthawk in your back pocket. This one doesn't really matter the stats, anything here, but you do want to have Fontamite on for later in the dungeon. My gauntlets, I used a Focusing Strike to get ability energy back, again when you're getting melee attacks, and then the SMG gun or SMG machine gun loader, so that you can reload quicker while you're shooting the eyes in the first encounter, and that paired on top of Threat Detector gives you a bunch of reload speed. Then on your class or on your chest piece, you're going to be using Elemental Time Dilation so that all these Phantomites you're using are going to stack. On your boots, I'm going to be running a Scavenger and a Phantomite here. You can put whatever thing you want here. I would probably use Discipline for this just to get mine to 50. And then on the class item, I just used Weaken Clear and Solo Operative since they give a pretty nice damage boost, and Solo Operatives all the time, and Weaken Clear with Wither Horde. Alright, so now that we got the loadout down, I'm going to go over the entrance encounter first, because that is the first thing you are going to be presented with. One thing that I neglected to say anything about in the loadout was really the only thing you need for stats wise is 100 resilience. 100 resilience in season 19 until it's nerfed, and season 20 is the go-to, so I would definitely use that if you're doing this within the first 2 weeks of seeing this video. Even in season 20, I'm sure resilience is still going to be super strong, so I would still probably use it then, but we won't know for sure until that comes around. When it comes to the first encounter, it's going to be a lot of the same that I did when I was a warlock. I'm going to go to the back first, kill that Minotaur immediately, and then just start by doing the right hand nodes immediately. I follow the same path every single time. I will keep that path on screen for you guys if you want to see that and follow it. I think it is the safest, and it is pretty quick to get this encounter done. I usually get it done within 2 minutes. I also opt to use an eager edge sword just because if I end up falling off the map leading up to the first encounter, sometimes I can save myself with that, but mainly it is to actually get around the map quicker, because the entrance and getting to the first encounter can be a little stale, so I just want to get past that as quickly as possible. You don't have to do that. That is something that I always do when running this encounter. Right when you get done with the initial encounter, you'll see that I switched to stasis on screen. The reason I do this is because I like skipping the jumping puzzle with shadow dive skating. If you know how to do that, I'll show you the exact location that I usually use to completely skip that encounter. You can do that as well. It makes it go by a little bit quicker. If not, I will also have gameplay of me not shadow dive skating and continuing to use the solar subclass to get to the first boss. When doing this part, and this goes for the rest of the dungeon in general, just use your knives and your melee attack as much as possible, because going invis is your survivability here. As a hunter, that is what you should use to keep yourself alive, and just use it as much as you possibly can. That is one of the biggest tips that I can give you throughout this entire dungeon, is just try to stay invis as much as possible. That gives you so much survivability, and you should have it up constantly. Even if you miss your knife, you can just use your gambler's dodge to get it back immediately, and that's what makes this dungeon work well for Hunter. Alright, so we finally made it to the first actual encounter of the dungeon. This one will also be extremely fast. The main tip I can give you for this is to go to the same exact nodes every single time you run this dungeon. If you do the same movements over and over, you will begin to implant it in your mind. It'll become muscle memory for you. I've done this dungeon solo so many times that I just instinctively do the exact same thing every single time, and that's really what you want to get to. When it comes to Hunter, your survivability is actually going to be a lot better than when you were using the Warlock build that I gave in the last video. So one thing, if you're struggling with this dungeon, just lean on the build I'm giving you. Just make sure to use your invis as much as possible. Don't feel bad to throw a healing grenade and get more grenade kills to extend your restoration effect. As long as you do that, you follow the path that I'm using or whatever path you like to do, you should get through this encounter within 2 minutes and get to the boss pretty quickly. Again here, I'm opting to use an eager-edged sword for if I get pushed off the map somehow or mess up one of my jumps. But yeah, those are really all the things that I have with this encounter. It gets a little bit more intense once you get to the first boss, and we'll get over that after I show you my rotation for all 3 floors. Alright, so congratulations, you got to the first boss. But at this point, this is where we're actually going to be doing a little bit of a loadout switch up. So in the subclass, the first thing you're going to want to do is switch off of Knife Trick and actually go to Proximity Knife. The main reason that we're doing this is because the Knife Trick, for some reason, it is either extremely hard to hit the boss with this particular knife to proc Radiant during the damage phase, or it just completely goes through him. I don't understand the interaction there, but I found that Proximity Knife gets it procced beautifully every single time. And it is also pretty good at being used with Assassin's Cowl when you want to go invis. Just make sure when you use this not to be close to the target, because if you are too close, it can blow up and kill you. But again, it is very good with Assassin's Cowl. So that's pretty much the only thing you have to change in here. Besides, you're going to switch to Marksman Golden Gun. Now, this does really good damage to this boss with Celestial Nighthawk on. So that is what you are going to do. You're going to switch to Marksman Golden Gun, and when the damage phase comes up, you're going to get a kill with the knife to spawn the Elemental Well, and then you're going to switch right to Celestial Nighthawk to get that Font of Might, and you'll pick it up after you switch so that you get more Font of Might stacks from your armor. Other than that, I am not running double special here. I am also going to switch to my Threat Detector Palace Mini Tool, so if you have one with Threat Detector, that'd be great. Typically, I would use double special just so that I get a lot more ammo, and I shoot out the eyes a lot quicker. I don't find that that is really necessary for the eyes if you have Threat Detector and some machine gun loader. And it's going to be a little bit different how you actually tackle this encounter than when we were on Warlock, and I'll show that right now. Now, what made Warlock so nice to solo this dungeon was, especially in this boss, you could really just ignore a lot of the ads in the sky. Like the Harpies, you would just insta-kill all of them with one fusion nade. But since we're not using a fusion nade here, and we're actually using a healing grenade for survivability, we don't have that luxury here. So the reason I'm not running double special is so I can use all of my primary ammo to completely clear out all of the enemies here. Because if you do not do that, they will absolutely annihilate you during damage phase, and you will have to either give up damage and go underneath and forgo some of your damage phase, or you'll have to throw a healing grenade at a perfect time and not die from the boss's blast. So to completely avoid this, I just clear out as many of the ads as I possibly can, so that during damage phase, I'm not really getting hit by anything at all. It makes it a lot easier. You're not going to get flinched either. And also on Warlock, you have your Rift to counteract getting shot when you're actually shooting out the eyes. So I think this is the best way to go, is just to kill everything. But also your damage phase is going to be better on Hunter because you have a damage super like Celestial Gold Gun. I'll show you the exact rotation of what I do every single time on screen now, and it's been playing in the background as I'm talking. But you can easily 3-phase this boss with Font of Might and Gold Gun. I have even almost 2-phased it once if you get perfect RNG with Font of Might and everything there if you're quick enough. The one thing I will say, sometimes I did find it hard to get Font of Might on the side that I was doing damage from. The easiest way to actually get this is to kill the 2 Minotaurs that are on either side and get the Minotaur to spawn on the platform that you're doing damage, because it'll also spawn 3 goblins with it, and you could just keep one of those goblins alive since it's already on that platform. It'll be easy to kill that with your proximity knife right after you shoot the Electrician buff. Really, a lot of this, just stay alive. There is no need to save your healing nade if you are killing all of the ads. So if you ever need it while you're killing ads, go for it. And as you're getting kills with your knife or with your gun, you're going to be getting restoration back. So your survivability is really high here. And even with one bad damage phase, you can 3-phase this boss. I will show in the background how I like to do all the nodes. This is a major theme throughout the entire dungeon, is I like to do the same thing every time so that I know exactly where every node is going to be, and I'll show you my process. If something else works better for you, where you like to do it quicker another way, that's great. But these are the tips that I have for this boss. I'll even show you a damage phase. I might even show a bad damage phase and show you that it is still possible to get a 3-phase without Font of Might and without actually putting Celestial on to increase the damage. So once we get through this and I show you everything there, I'll show you the lead up to the final boss. Now here I just wanted to show one additional damage phase so I could walk through exactly what I do every time and what I think is the most efficient way to do it. So you're going to start out by spawning the Minotaur on the side that you're going to be damaging from. You're going to kill the Minotaur and 2 of the goblins and shoot the head off of the other goblin. This will make it so that he will start chasing you to the node, and just make sure you grab the Electrician so that you can shoot this node. Then when you're ready, you are going to shoot the node and just wait a couple seconds and then use your throwing knife on this goblin to spawn the Font of Might buff at your feet. At this point, you're going to switch to your Celestial Nighthawk. Then when the boss is there, you're going to shoot out all of his eyes, and after all of his eyes are gone, you're going to pick up the Font of Might, you're going to shoot your Wither Horde, and then you're going to shoot 1 shot of Cataclysmic. Then you can throw your knife to get the Radiant buff, and now you have the 25% Radiant buff and the 25% buff from Font of Might for around 15 seconds. You can dump all of your Cataclysmic ammo at that point. After all of that is done, you're going to take out Wither Horde, shoot it 1 more time to weaken again, super, and then after that, if you can get any more Cataclysmic shots in, go for it. So now we're almost at the final boss. You just have to get through the fan portion. Before we do get to that though, you're going to want to go into your subclass. I would switch your super back to Blade Barrage, and also I would switch back to Knife Trick, just because I feel like that is better than Explosive Knife, and you don't need it to proc Radiant on this next boss. And you can still use it for that, but you don't need Proximity Knife for that. If you want to make this encounter completely trivial, you could always put on the Exotic Bow Trinity Ghoul, because then you can instantly kill all the ads in the room with if you have the Catalyst. It's super easy. And then I would also probably put a rocket launcher on so that you can kill the Hydra on the 3rd floor pretty quickly. And then Wither Horde is completely fine again. I use that to kill the Minotaurs and everything there. But yeah, the main thing that will kill you in this encounter is the fans. And I showed this in my last video, how to actually get through this without dying, and I'll do the exact same thing here. On Hunter, it is not very difficult. You just have to find the notches in the wall that I'm going to show you, and double jump before you hit the fan below you to get on the platform in the first one, and then the second one is a lot easier. I'll show you how to get through those now. When going down the first set of fans, the first fan is pretty straightforward to get through. I just have to jump before you hit the second fan. The second one is quite difficult sometimes. The notch in the wall that I go to, it actually has a little bump. If you hit that bump, it will kick you out and hit you into the fan. So just make sure you hug the wall right after that bump so it doesn't knock you out and kill you into the fan. Second set of fans are a little bit simpler. You're just going to want to ride the notches in the wall that I use. There's nothing special here. You just ride those all the way down to the bottom. You should be good. On the second fan, you do see that I did get hit and I almost died, which would have been pretty unfortunate. Just to avoid that, I was going a little too slow, so you just want to sprint off the fan. Don't jump at all, just sprint off into the notch and you'll be okay here. Now, I did show this in the last video as well, but I figure I'd show it here. When you are doing the first and second floor, there are two places, one on each floor, where you can see all of the nodes to get them shot real quickly. I'll show those real quick for you here, so you don't have to go back in the other video and look for that. For this final floor, just make sure you kill the Hydra in the center, because that Hydra will do a lot of damage to you if you get in line of sight of it. With a rocket launcher preferably, even if you have your blade barrage, which you might at this point since you switched your super back a couple minutes ago. Just take that out. Then use your healing grenade, kill stuff with your melee, with your gun, just to keep your restoration up, and you'll be completely fine here. The toughest part is actually getting all these nodes done. I usually shoot the middle node first, just because sometimes that is hard for me to find. So I would find that middle node and then do the outside nodes after you shoot that one. You should be able to get to the final boss now. Congratulations, you got to the final boss. But this is probably the hardest part of the dungeon, just because you don't have the crazy damage potential like you do on Warlock. So buckle in, this will be a little rough. Survivability will be a little bit better than Warlock, just because you have invis, and you can use your healing grenade whenever you're low with Empyrean. But the damage phase is definitely a lot tougher. You're going to want to start the phase by killing the two Hydra. I usually just stick them with one Wither Horde and shoot them a couple times, and they'll die pretty quickly. Whenever you see something spawning in the main room that you started in, you're going to want to shoot a Wither Horde down, because those are supplicants spawning, and those are the main thing that are going to kill you in this encounter, so you just want to stay away from them as much as possible. Like I said in the last video, supplicants are the bane of my existence in here, so do not feel weird to shoot a Wither Horde at the ground just to kill a few supplicants, because it is definitely worth your life. Especially as a hunter, when you're jumping over supplicants, shoot the Wither Horde at the ground. They'll either stay in it and die, or they will go away from you and leave you alone for a couple seconds. So that's always a great thing to do there. Again, if you see in the beginning of the boss phase something spawning in the middle, shoot your Wither Horde there, because that supplicants gives you free roam for a little bit. But the way that we're going to actually be doing damage in this fight is nothing special. It's going to be cataclysmic again. Now, you don't have the crazy damage output of the well against this boss as a solo hunter, so the safest thing to really do is just sit in the back with a linear and a healing grenade when you get low and cast your blade barrage. If you do it right, you can 4-phase this boss with Font of Might, which is what I was doing in this gameplay here. I did have one really bad damage phase, so I ended up 5-phasing it, but that is not bad at all. You just need to make sure that you are hitting the crits. Even if you aren't, get one bad damage phase, that's fine. Survivability is really good on this build, so you shouldn't worry about that. When doing the actual nodes though, I always start on the nodes on the right hand side of the room, just because I find those a little bit more dangerous to do than the ones on the left hand side, especially when the boss is in the second room. Speaking of this second room, if you are having trouble staying alive at the beginning of the encounter, or beginning of each boss damage phase afterwards, just go in this second room because nothing will spawn there. It's kind of like a safe haven for you, where you can swap armor, do anything that you need to do, wait for cooldowns until you kill the Minotaurs and open the middle. So yeah, those are some of the biggest tips that I can give you leading up to the damage phase. Now let's talk about the damage phase a little bit. Now the first thing you're going to want to do for the damage phase is, after you shoot the last node, maybe even before that, you're going to want to shoot a head off of a goblin so that it chases you into the damage room. Once you close the door, you're going to kill that goblin with your melee ability, so it drops a solar well, and once the damage phase begins, you can pick that well up. You're going to want to make sure you hit the boss with the Wither Horde, and then you switch to your primary weapon, shoot that a couple times, and then switch to Cataclysmic just so you can proc bait and switch. Once you do all 10 shots of that, you're going to want to super, and then after your super, you can take Wither Horde out, shoot it, shoot with your primary weapon again a little bit, and Weaken Clear will automatically reload your heavy. So then you can lay a couple more shots in there. Usually when I run this encounter, at least on Warlock, I do use double special, but I don't think that it is needed here, just because you're going to be getting a lot more kills than when you were a Warlock. So as long as you have Finder and Scavenger mods on for your linear fusion rifle, you should not have ammo problems whatsoever. The damage phase is a lot more simple on Warlock or on Hunter, that's for sure. But it's not going to be as fast. So the name of the game here is being safe and just making sure not to get flinched. If you do have to run away from a damage phase because he's getting too close to you too fast, don't feel bad about that. You just want to survive and get this done. That's pretty much it. As long as you repeat that for 4 or 5 phases, maybe less if you are better at aiming the linear fusion than I am against this boss, you should have the Soul of Flawless done. So I'm trying to rush to get this video out because there's only about 2 weeks left in the season, and I want to get this out before the end of season 19 so that I could have this video up while the artifact mods are still in play. So good luck to all the hunters out there. I'm a hunter main as well, so good luck to all of you that are going for the Solo Flawless. I hope all of my testing and tips helped you out. Good luck going for your Solo Flawless. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I'll reply to everything possible. I hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, wherever you are, and peace out.
A multi-front attack. Sabotage us.